Welcome to the Synapse video of the week. In this week's video, we are going to be reviewing the how, what, and why of aerobic exercise. We have a great video in store for you. This is part of a series that we started a couple weeks ago in which we went over the recommendations for a comprehensive exercise program for Parkinson's. We covered the four basic areas of what should be included. And we went over a really nice infographic, which, if I work my movie magic correctly, you should be looking at right now. So that should jog your memory from a couple weeks ago. If you did not see that video, I will include a link to watch that presentation that was just about 5 minutes long in the show notes. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, there's a little description of the video, and in there, I will have a link to watch that original video if you did not see that, because this video today will be one of four parts in which we cover each one of those topics. This video is about 22 minutes long, a little longer than what we intended it to be, but there is fantastic content all the way to the end. So I really encourage you to stick with it and watch all the way through. Again, whether you are new to exercise and aerobic exercise, or you are an experienced exerciser that's been doing this for a while, there's good info in here for everyone. Please watch till the end and let us know if you have any questions. Thank you. All right, welcome Synapse community. In this video, we are going to be going over everything about aerobic exercise, and this is going to be one of four videos that we do in the series following up on the components of a comprehensive Parkinson's exercise program. And this is the topic aerobic exercise. Of those four components of an exercise program, I believe aerobic exercise is probably the most important for us to be talking about. It's often overlooked, seen as simple or something that people don't enjoy doing. And there are so many benefits, and some of the most benefits for Parkinson's are to be had with aerobic exercise. So I am excited to be talking to you about this topic today. So let's get on into it. So first of all, let's just start with what is aerobic exercise. Now, there are fancy scientific definitions, but for our intents and purposes, we are just going to say that aerobic exercise is any activity that you do that is repetitive. So you do it repetitively, meaning keeping your body in motion during that time for a sustained duration. Maybe that is 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. And it increases your heart rate and breathing rate, AKA increased effort in general. Okay, you should be sweating. It should be hard to talk to somebody. You are working hard while you are doing this activity. So some examples of what constitutes aerobic exercise: walking or jogging or running. So different people have different ability levels with what they can do. And also people are starting from different fitness levels. So for some people, walking, just a simple walk, might feel challenging to them and be an aerobic activity. For others, that might not get their heart rate up, and they need to be doing something more along the lines of jogging or running to get their heart rate up. Also, swimming or water aerobics can also be considered aerobic activity. Dancing, one of my favorite things to do. It's fun, to music, engaging, and also gets you working hard. Boxing, another one of my favorite things to do, hence us running our own Rocksteady boxing program. This is a fantastic workout that addresses many different areas, not just aerobic conditioning. And chair exercises can be aerobic, again, if done at a level that is sustained and hard enough to get you breathing hard and your heart rate up while doing it. And biking also, whether it be indoors or outdoors or on a regular bike or stationary bike, can absolutely be an aerobic activity, probably one of the most popular aerobic activities, especially when it comes to Parkinson's. There are various biking exercise programs that are out there, like Pedal for PD and different things like that that people participate in. A lot of the research done around aerobic exercise and Parkinson's has been done on bikes. Circuit training, also where you set up several stations or activities and then go through all of those, back to back, maybe with a little rest in between. But as long as you're doing it, again, at a level that is sustained and repetitive and getting your heart rate up, it is aerobic conditioning. So what about interval training? Again, in that definition for what we said aerobic exercise was, is that part of it, we said that it needed to be a sustained duration. Well, interval training is actually kind of a fun way that we can do this. It doesn't have to be, when we say sustained duration, it doesn't have to be completely continuous the whole time, meaning that if I get on an exercise bike, I don't have to keep moving at the same pace for the entire, let's say 30 minutes, okay? We can break it up into little bursts of activity. So this is also known as HIIT training or high intensity interval training. And the definition is, as I was just kind of describing, a series of high intensity workouts that are interspersed with rest or relief periods. And so you can take any workout, again, whether you're walking or on a bike or doing a circuit or even dancing, whatever it might be, and you can break it up into shorter intervals, ranging in periods from high intensity work that are maybe 30 seconds up to several minutes, with similar rest breaks in between. And we will talk about the specific benefits to doing this too. One of the main ones, I think, is that it's more interesting and fun to break something up into smaller units and can seem less intimidating to people as they go forward. So here's the big question, all right? And this is really what I want to talk about today. Why do aerobic exercise, okay? So, I could go out there and say, all right, you should get out there and do, get on the bike or do whatever it is. But really, you need to know the why, because this why to me is just kind of mind blowing, the benefits that are available through aerobic activity. So the most basic one that you probably know about already is that doing aerobic exercise improves your cardiovascular endurance. Okay. So again, your cardiovascular, your heart and your circulation system, it improves that, right? So your heart gets stronger and better at doing work. Your lungs get better at doing work. Your circulation pumps better. Everything just kind of works better when we engage in aerobic exercise. What this also means is that when you have better cardiovascular endurance, you can do more in your day without being as tired. Right. And I think this is the number one selling point to the cardiovascular benefits for people with Parkinson's. I hear all the time as a physical therapist from people that they just feel so tired and fatigued. And Parkinson's really has a way of doing this to people, because every kind of effort you make is a little bit harder, a little bit more challenging, maybe than it used to be. Both in that it's harder for your body to move and do activities, and also it takes a little bit more brain power than it used to. So people become more fatigued in their daily activities than they used to be. And so this is a huge benefit, that the more you exercise, the more you can do without being tired. And this is a little counterintuitive, right? Because most people say, well, gosh, Kelly, if I'm tired, the last thing I want to do is exercise, right? That makes total sense. And I've heard this from basically everybody, right? A countless number of people. That's the last thing you want to do. But truly, the more you engage in that activity, the more you challenge yourself just a little bit every day, the more capacity you will have to do activities. You have to have faith and trust in the process, but you will build up more endurance over time. And then eventually you'll look back and say, wow, I can do so much more in my day than I used to be able to do without getting tired. So that's a huge benefit in itself. But the next part is even more exciting. And that is that when we do aerobic exercise, it is improving circulation all over our body, but most importantly to our brain, okay? Right, so Parkinson's is a disease that affects the brain, and we are now getting circulation up to our brain, and that helps to release chemicals which do a number of things. It helps us to grow new brain cells. Oh, hold on, my computer is being a little silly. Those are supposed to come out one at a time. It helps to form new cell connections, okay? Those are also known as synapses, hence the name of our nonprofit, Synapse Fitness Foundation. So you get new connections between those cells in the brain. and it helps to protect existing cells and connections. Okay, so when I hear this, I go, wow, that's amazing. You might say, okay, sure. So I got some cells and connections, and what does that really mean for me? Okay, well, so think about this for a moment. If we can protect the existing cells and connections in our brain, we can protect the brain from degeneration. Okay, that's huge. Remember again, Parkinson's is a degenerative neurologic condition, meaning that the brain is degenerating over time with this disease. All right, and that's a terrible thing and not something that we want to happen. But we can protect the brain from degeneration when we engage in aerobic exercise, when we get that circulation to the brain. That is hugely important. Also, if we can form new brain cells and new connections between those cells, what else can we do? We can learn new ways of doing old tricks. Okay. The scientific term for that is neuroplasticity, meaning that our brain can adapt and make changes to doing things that it used to do in new ways. So, this is very important again with Parkinson's or other neurologic conditions. People often lose the ability to do certain tasks or activities, or it becomes more challenging or harder to do. Our brain is amazing at adapting. So if we do aerobic exercise and improve that circulation to the brain and get those chemicals firing and releasing, we can help set our brain up for success to find new ways of doing those old things. It's like creating a detour around a blocked area in the brain. And we just have to kind of give it some of that nutrition and input so that it knows how to do that. So these are two amazing things for the brain, why we engage in aerobic exercise. Really, if we were to stop this presentation right here, this is the meat. This is the most important thing to know about this. This is why I hope everybody engages in aerobic exercise. But let's talk a little bit more. So also, I mentioned before that HIIT training, that interval training, there are some specific benefits to doing that as well. I talked earlier about how one is just a little bit more fun and engaging, kind of breaking something up into little intervals than instead of just doing it the whole way through. But it also improves how our body uses oxygen and insulin, which helps anyone, not just people with Parkinson's, to live longer and healthier lives. But specifically with Parkinson's, it can help to reduce the rigidity and stiffness that people have in their arms and legs, making it easier to move them. And it can also help improve balance, muscle control, cognition, and a general sense of well-being. I've also seen studies that engaging in this interval type training can even improve your aerobic capacity, often quicker than engaging in just like sustained aerobic exercise. So that's another plus. You can often get away with quicker benefits and sometimes not even having to do quite as much work. Okay, next up, see if my computer will keep going here. All right, so how much aerobic exercise should we be doing? Well, the minimum. Okay, in that infographic that we went over in the previous video that was put out by the American College of Sports Medicine and the Parkinson's Foundation, they said in that when it comes to aerobic activity, you should be doing a minimum of 3 days a week for 30 minutes. Okay. And it should be moderate to vigorous intensity. We will talk about what that means here in a moment. We have some slides coming up on that. And really, also, there was kind of a subnote on there. And in the presentations that I've given in the past, I've actually guided people closer to doing 2.5 hours a week of moderate to vigorous intensity. But how we're going to differentiate this is that between all areas of your exercise, remember there was the aerobics, strength training, skill-based training, and flexibility, that between all of those, we want to be hitting about 2.5 hours of that moderate to vigorous intensity. Okay, but at least 3 days a week of 30 minutes, all right, that's 90 minutes, should be aerobic exercise. And I would kind of push you closer to even more of that being aerobic exercise, closer to the 2.5 hours a week being aerobic exercise, while still doing those other activities too. The true minimum though, right? So if that is already maybe above your threshold for what you think is possible, as is for many people when they are diagnosed with Parkinson's have not been in the habit of exercising. Maybe it hasn't been a part of their life and routine, and that's okay. Okay. But the true minimum of amount of aerobic activity is that anything is better than nothing, right? Anything is better than nothing. This isn't an all or none phenomenon. If you can't get those 3 days a week of 30 minutes, it doesn't mean you give up. Anything is better than nothing. Start where you are at and slowly work your way up so that you are hitting those minimums, and then hopefully eventually in the future, even more than that. And if you are new to exercise, especially consult your physical therapist for guidance in what is appropriate or ways to help you through maybe some things that you are going through. So again, on how much aerobic exercise for more benefits, for maximum benefits, what do the experts recommend? Well, they say that people with PD, especially in the early stages, should exercise as long as possible, as often as possible. Wow. Okay. So I know that's that doesn't really say a whole lot, but it says a ton all at the same time. You should be doing as much exercise as you can. Okay. And I know that can be overwhelming to a lot of people, but that is the fact. You should be doing as much exercise as you can. If you want the maximum benefits, if you want the most protection for your brain and your body and reduce falls and all the things that go along with Parkinson's, you should be exercising as much as you can. All right. The more you do, the better, as long as we are being careful to avoid injury. Okay. So we can say do a ton, but if you wind up hurting yourself and having to take a break from exercise, that's not doing you any good either. So the goal here is longevity, pushing yourselves, but not to the point of injury. And that can be kind of a hard balance to find, especially because we tell people to really challenge themselves and push the limits and make sure it's intense. But at the same time, we don't want to overdo it. And sometimes we cross that threshold, and sometimes we do overdo it a little bit. But the goal is to stay close to that threshold, but not surpass it. And having some guidance from a professional can be really helpful when it comes to that. So we also want to ensure, again, we already talked about this a little bit, but we want to do as much as possible. The more you do, the better. And also, again, ensuring that we are doing exercise that is at that moderately high to high intensity. Okay, we're going to talk more about that right now. So intensity definitions. What does that mean? So moderate intensity would be defined as exercise with a target heart rate of 50 to 70% of your max heart rate. Now, there are different ways of finding out what your max heart rate is. The very basic way is to do 220 minus your age, and that would be what your max heart rate should be. There are some more precise ways of knowing that, but probably that's the easiest thing for me to tell you right now, how to set that up. But you can also go, and actually, I think I even prefer to have people instead use a perceived exertion, meaning that on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being like, I'm sitting on a couch, 10 being that I'm going to pass out because I can't do any more activity. I'm working so hard, or whatever you want to say your 10 is, right? That you should be working out at about a 5 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10. That would be moderate. Okay. Vigorous or high intensity, very similar definitions, just bumping it up a notch, is that the target heart rate would be 70 to 85% of your max. Okay. Or on that scale of 1 to 10, you're working at a 7 or an 8. Okay. So definitely getting up there. Notice we're not working out at a 9 or a 10. Okay. That's too much. But we do want to be working somewhere between that 5 to an 8. And in our classes, I really tell people more of a 6 to an 8 is what we're aiming for. Somewhere between a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. That is our sweet spot of getting an appropriate challenge in our workouts. So a little word of caution about intensity though. So as I was saying before, you can determine this through your heart rate. A lot of people have heart rate monitors on their smart watches and things like that now that they can check their heart rates out, or it's easy to get a little thing to put on your finger to see what your heart rate is. However, heart rate may not be an accurate predictor of exertion for all people with Parkinson's or people that are taking certain blood pressure medications, have a pacemaker or AFib. So talk with your physician if you have any of these conditions or you have concerns about your heart rate or using your heart rate as a predictor of your exercise intensity. And in general, also just Parkinson's itself, sometimes for people will kind of blunt the rise in their heart rate with activity. So just having Parkinson's in itself can sometimes make heart rate not as predictable or not as good of a predictor of their exertion levels. So in that case, again, I really like to just go back to the very basic perceived exertion scale, 1 to 10. How hard do you feel you're working? And we find that that's a pretty good predictor as long as you're being honest and true to yourself and how hard something feels. Okay. So, where to start? If you are new to aerobic exercise, talk with your doctor to see if you have any health conditions that warrant more closer monitoring during exercise. There's rarely a condition where you shouldn't be exercising at all. Exercise helps with most conditions. It's just a matter of how much guidance do you need in that condition with exercise. If you have joint or back concerns, pain, or Parkinson's symptoms that are limiting your movement, making it hard for you to engage in that exercise, I encourage you to work with a physical therapist to help you be able to participate in exercise. And if you would like help in developing an exercise plan that is appropriate to you, you can reach out to our organization and we can help you in developing that as well. So if you are already exercising, maybe you're already in a good routine of either doing your own thing, going to the gym or working out on your exercise bike at home, or maybe you are a member of our Rock Steady boxing class or another Rock Steady boxing class. We want to make sure that you are still paying attention to some things. Make sure that you are getting enough aerobic exercise and increasing it over time, especially for people, let's say, that have been in our Rock Steady boxing program for years. Are you challenging yourself outside of class? If you've been doing this same 2 or 3 days a week for many years, it's probably time to pick up the amount of aerobic activity you are doing and do something on the days that you are not in class. Again, whether it's going out for a brisk walk or riding an exercise bike or dancing or whatever it might be. Okay. Be challenging yourself to do more over time. You should, again, be progressing that workout program both in how much and the intensity of what you're doing. Make sure you're achieving that moderate to high workout intensity. We sometimes get lazy in what we do a little bit, right? Especially if you're into the same routine, doing the same thing for a long time. You might kind of find yourself going ho hum about what you do for your exercise. So make sure you are pushing that intensity. And if you, again, need help progressing your exercise program, we can help you with that too, whether it's developing something extra for you to add on to what you're already doing or finding more challenging things. These are the resources that we covered in today's talk. We found resources from the Parkinson's Foundation, some research articles, as well as info from the Brian Grant Foundation. So thank you to all of them for those resources. I hope that you enjoyed and found this presentation useful in figuring out how to include aerobic activity into your exercise routine. Thank you.
This video is brought to you by Synapse Fitness Foundation, a nonprofit empowering people with Parkinson's to live their best lives through exercise, education, and connection to others. The presenter of today's video is Dr. Kelly Becker, physical therapist and founder of Synapse Fitness Foundation. If you found today's video useful, please click the like button and forward this video onto somebody that you think would find this useful. Thank you.